Hi there, this is Erik Egelko, and I am super excited to welcome you to episode number 2 of the Easy Deals podcast, sponsored by Palm Tree Properties. All right, welcome back. Well, today I am very fortunate and excited to have my protege turned business partner, Max Reynolds, here in the studio. Max, welcome in.
Thank you for having me in, Eric. Excited to be on.
Many people in San Diego know Max. He's a San Diego native who grew up in this area. Max and I first linked up back in 2017 when Max was first getting into the real estate business. He came aboard as the first member of my team, and while many people have attempted the task, Max has by far been the most successful person that I've ever brought on, and our relationship has evolved from beyond just working together as agents to owning properties together, and to now being partners in a property management company here in San Diego called Palm Tree Properties. So Max, for people in the audience who are not familiar, why don't you tell us a bit about your background?
Yeah, so my name is Max Reynolds. I'm Vice President at Palm Tree Properties. We're a property management company specializing in residential property management, anywhere from single family homes to apartment buildings throughout San Diego County. In addition to the property management, do a little bit of brokerage, helping people buy and sell, as well as some investing myself.
Fantastic. So you grew up in the area. I know your family has a bit of background in the real estate development space. Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so born and raised in San Diego. I grew up in a family of developers. My dad and uncle owned a development company, did a lot of single family communities, primarily out in the East County area. So growing up, I always knew I wanted to be in the real estate business. Didn't know exactly what area I wanted to focus on, but coming out of college, I was on a trip to Europe, and my dad was talking to a broker that did a lot of land deals for them back in the day, and he mentioned a senior broker in their office looking to bring on a junior. So got back into town, went and interviewed with you, and started out doing commercial real estate, primarily leasing, then got into sales for retail and office buildings. And then from there, that's turned into doing some investing myself.
Awesome. Well, yeah, Max and I have literally closed hundreds of deals together. I mean, we've had some incredible highs, some pretty low lows. Definitely been shoulder to shoulder in the trenches for a long time. I remember the early days. There was like a lot of these funny smaller leasing assignments that you did. One particular stands out to me on this office building over in Granville. Why don't you kind of give everyone the scoop about that first deal that we did?
Yeah, so starting out, did a lot of leasing for small mom and pop type owners, and this property, a small office building, was owner managed, no professional management company, and had locked down a lease for a new tenant, and went to hand over keys. The office was still full of a bunch of furniture and crap from the previous tenant, and new tenant was flipping out, was pretty upset, didn't want to deal with all the furniture that was in there. So Saturday morning, went in there with my gym shorts on and just got to work, got everything moved out and ready for the new tenant to move in.
Yeah, and I think that this is really indicative of what it takes to be successful long term in a business like brokerage. I have many people come into the office who want to come aboard to our team and our company, and oftentimes they have great credentials and they go to these top-notch colleges when, honestly for me, someone who will just see a problem and tackle it head on themselves, like you did, one-man moving company, that is what really makes the difference. Having a fantastic resume or a shiny business card, no one cares. It's people want to engage with someone who they know is going to get things done, which, obviously on this deal you did.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit out of the scope of work of what's required in the brokerage business, but sometimes you just gotta go the extra mile to get stuff done.
Yeah, I would say that the deal where you totally stay within your scope is one I'm still looking forward to being a party to.
Sure.
So thinking of more successes that we had in the early days, I basically had put you on the hunt to just hit the phones, calling all of the properties in our territory, and we caught a really lucky break in the beginning with the shopping center called Aztec Village. Why don't you give people the intro on sort of how all that came to be?
Yeah, so I was doing a lot of cold calling in the college area near San Diego State. That was our area of focus, was doing leasing for retail and office buildings along El Cajon Boulevard, University Avenue, and called on one strip center that had a vacancy that had been vacant for a while, and majority of our clients were all small local mom and pop type owners, and this property was a bigger investor based out of LA that we'd called on, and ended up getting in the mix to do the leasing over there, and the leasing wasn't going too well. We're making too much progress, and then we got approached by a buyer off market that had been very interested in the center, and was a little bit out of our league at the time, but happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I would say a little out of our league is a generous statement. I mean, at this point in my career, I was 2.5 years into it, and I think I yet to close a deal over $1 million. And I think that you at this point hadn't closed any escrows.
Yeah, I haven't one sale transaction yet.
All leasing at that point, and many brokers had tried before us that they had, I'm not going to name the names of the companies, but big national companies everyone knows the names of had this listing before, and then all of a sudden these two 20-somethings are involved in a $5 million deal. So we were excited. I would say we were pretty overwhelmed. Getting into the deal was a huge challenge. I mean, why don't you tell people a little bit of what the negotiating on this thing looked like?
Yeah, so once we got approached by the buyer, we'd gone back to the seller, let them know that we had somebody who was interested. They were a little caught off guard, hadn't really considered selling the property just yet, but upon further consideration, they came up with a number that they would consider selling at. So we went back to the buyer, gave them that price. They put in an offer a little bit lower than that. Sellers were a bit perturbed by that price, ended up countering at above the initial price they had told us they would consider selling at. And at that point, buyer was a little taken back, didn't think that they were serious sellers, had gone back and forth in negotiations quite a bit, couldn't really come to an agreement on price. Deal went dead for a few weeks, and then buyer reached back out. We were able to get conversations going again. Finally came to an agreement on price, and yeah, I'll let you.
Yeah, no, I mean, one of my biggest takeaways from this deal is I had always thought that bigger owners, bigger properties, you're going to get like more professional, business-minded people, and that sort of the emotional components of negotiating would be less when you're dealing with bigger fish per se, which was not the case at all. I mean, the level of personal offense that these buyers and sellers were taking when we were kind of just playing monkey in the middle, trying to get everyone to see on the same page, was an eye-opener to me, and definitely something that helped form my negotiating style, working on big deals moving forward. So we got everyone to agree on the initial price, but I would say at that point the deal was far from closed. If anything, we were maybe only in the second or third inning of what was going to be a very contentious transaction. We kind of had everything that could go wrong did go wrong on this deal. The inspection was definitely like a notable event. Why don't you tell people how that went down?
Yeah, so inspections happened to be on one of the rainiest days that we had seen in quite a while. First couple suites we had gone into, the tenants had pointed out some leaks that were already coming in through the ceiling that day. And just the weather couldn't have been more perfect for a buyer to discover all these problems. Had it not been raining, they wouldn't have seen all these leaks.
Yeah, I mean, like literally, usually you do one of these inspections, and out of 10 tenants, maybe you have like one or two that kind of have a bad attitude and are complaining. But I mean, this was one where it was like every single suite we went into, people were complaining about something new, and Max and I were just kind of standing outside going like, oh my god, there's no way we're gonna make this deal.
Yeah.
I remember we went around to the backside and something kind of funny happened to you. Why don't you tell people about this?
Yeah, so we went around to the back. There's a lot of homeless issues along Elkhorn Boulevard, and a couple of homeless had set up an encampment behind the building, and we were going behind back to get on top of the roof, and it was pouring rain out, so there was mud everywhere, and it got to a point where the buyer had stepped in what we thought had been mud. Turned out
Thought
to
it was mud.
Yeah, turned out to be some homeless feces.
Yeah, not a lot of public restrooms in this area, unfortunately.
Yeah, so that was kind of the icing on the cake.
Yeah, no,
the inspection.
There's like a lot of objections you can overcome, but I just stepped in human crap. I don't think either of us had a good rebuttal from that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember we didn't know what we were doing, but we were like definitely fearless. Like I remember climbing up on this roof. We're both like suited and booted with wingtips on. We should have wore running shoes, but just standing on this roof, getting soaked, it was like this biblical moment almost. But there's a happy ending. So we get through the inspection. The buyer drove a really hard bargain on the repairs, which was really difficult because the seller, it was not an off-market deal, so the seller didn't have like a high degree of motivation. So to get them to be reasonable about what were some serious deferred maintenance issues with the property was tough. But finally we got it done. I think it was like 8 months, start to finish on that one.
Yeah, it was from the time we first started discussions with the buyer to the time we closed, it was quite a while.
Yeah, and then $5 million sounds like a huge deal, but I mean we got attacked from all angles on our commission. You want to give people kind of some breakdown of how many ways we had to split the pie?
Yeah, so $5 million deal, you think it's a pretty good fee, but the seller fee had to get split up amongst 4 people. It was the 2 of us. The seller's son was an agent, and then the property manager had been with the property for several years, and the owners thought that he was deserving of a fee as well. So just to get the deal done, we ended up having to essentially cut our fee in half.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, it was the biggest fee either of us had made on anything at that point, so
Sure.
so we were pretty jazzed. I remember that this was kind of like a launching pad for some of our other deals. Tell the audience sort of, I mean, what did this do for your confidence and your business?
Yeah, this is a big resume builder. Gave me a lot of confidence calling on other properties in the area and telling them about the recent sale. It was a bigger property for the area, so a lot of owners were, one, familiar with the property because of some of the tenants. They'd all visited there, the taco shop, the smoothie place. So a lot of owners were very eager to learn about the sale of the property. So it really helped with conversations and setting meetings, and ended up leading to a lot of more listings.
Yeah, I remember being that. I mean, honestly, we were probably like the 3rd brokerage team to take on the leasing for this thing.
Fourth.
Fourth, maybe. And like heavy hitters had come before us. I mean, if you had interviewed us all at the same time, I think it would have been unlikely that we would have been selected. But it definitely made some waves. I remember that. I remember more seasoned brokers were kind of like, who the heck are these guys, and how did they end up in this deal?
Yeah.
So switching gears a little bit, we have transitioned our business. We're still doing brokerage. If you want to buy or sell, we're here to help. But we have focused more on doing our own investments. Why don't you tell people a bit about this first property that we had bought back in 2021?
Yeah, so it was a 4-bedroom townhome over in La Mesa. Was sitting at home one night. Erik sent me a text with this property that just had hit the market, and he's like, "We should buy this." It was a really good deal. Didn't have a plan to buy it, but we just knew that it was a good deal, and we had to figure it out. So we ended up going to tour the property prior to the open house. The owner had just passed away, I believe, or just moved into retirement home.
Yeah, she had, and just to follow up on your comment, I would say a great idea without a plan is pretty consistent to how most of our best investments have turned out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this one, the story was this lady was moving into assisted living, and her kids just needed to get rid of this thing. It was kind of dated. The carpet was pretty gross, and they were spending all this money on the assisted living. They don't want to put any money into the place at all, and that's sort of some of the ingredients that we look for in deals.
Yeah, I went on the market and we were able to get it under contract, somehow even under the asking price prior to them hosting the open house, which at the time was right like the peak of the market heating up back in 21. So to get it under asking was pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, it was kind of unbelievable, and it's sort of just, we had to just keep our momentum up to close this deal. So we had tried to go the conventional lending route and basically just went in circles, getting our time wasted by some bankers at some banks that I won't mention, and we ended up closing on this thing with a private lender, which was my first experience just borrowing money from an individual, which was really great because you can kind of make the deal whatever you want it to be. So then we got it renovated. How would you describe this renovation?
Yeah, I mean, this was our first renovation, and we didn't have a ton of money at the time, so we were trying to save what we could. The cabinets being one of them. We just ended up painting the cabinets, which they looked good in the beginning, but after some use, didn't look as good after a while. Had a little bit of wear and tear. They're starting to stick.
They were gross, and the problem too is that we we kept the cabinets, but we replaced the countertop.
Yeah.
Which means that we should just replace never, if you're gonna replace the countertop, replace the cabinets. You're not saving any money. You're doing yourself any favors.
Yeah.
So then initially we thought we were gonna hold this thing long term, and we were gonna lease it. So why don't you tell people a bit of what that was like?
Yeah. So this is our first experience renting to Section 8. Remember, you looked into Section 8 quite a bit prior to us buying this home. So we went the Section 8 route. We were able to achieve a little bit of a premium rent, which was a big bonus. And things started off pretty well with our tenant. A few months into it, we started getting some complaints from the HOA. I guess the tenant had been, one of the members of the family had been smoking pot in the parking lot, playing loud music, was supposedly leaving trash by the pool. So after multiple complaints, we were like, hey, things aren't working out, and luckily they were in agreement to look for a new space and go our separate ways.
Yeah, and this is we do a lot with Section 8, and I think we're going to talk about that later in the episode. But one of the reasons that we went this way is this was during like the height of the COVID restrictions in 2021. So we were both really afraid of market rate tenants not paying the rent, because I mean this was like the time where if you wanted to evict someone, it took like a year. So the idea of getting the rent guaranteed by the government was really attractive. We didn't move the tenant in with the plan of having to kick them out, but it was kind of our saving grace that they were on a Section 8 voucher, just because they are very afraid of losing that opportunity to get subsidized housing. So they were far more cooperative with vacating than perhaps a market tenant would have been. I remember we took the unit back. It was kind of a distressing scene, just because the amount of wear and tear that had happened in like the 7 months that they were in there. You want to tell them a bit about all the stuff we had to fix the second time?
Yeah, I mean, we had just renovated it the first time and pretty much had to do a full second renovation once they moved out prior to putting it back on the market. But yeah, I mean, the walls were pretty banged up, marks everywhere. We had to repaint the whole place. Cabinets had to be repainted as well. There was some damaged drywall, had to be patched and repaired. But yeah, just for such a short period of time, the unit had a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah, so we like Max mentioned, we didn't budget for 2 renovations, so it's like we were really on a shoestring this second time. So I remember we called in all the favors from all the people. I remember our painter would be there until like 10 o'clock at night, and I was just stressing this guy out to the max. Javier, thank you so much. But fortunately we got it done. We put it on the market. Why don't you tell people how that went?
Yeah, so we bought the property for about a little over $460. I think with our second rehab, we probably had close to 60 into it. And at this point, this is right when interest rates were starting to climb up. Market was softening a little bit, but luckily we had our one godsend buyer come through. We only had one offer on the property when we put it on the market, and luckily ended up selling it for full price.
Yeah, I think even
over
a hair above.
Yeah.
It was why someone would offer over asking is beyond me, but that was sort of the culture at the time, and I'm not about to argue with them.
Yeah, this particular family just needed to be in the La Mesa area for the school district, and it was a fit for them. So luckily we were able to catch just the height of the market before things cooled off a little bit, and yeah, from there we parlayed it into buying 2 properties, and those have been great investments as well.
So being that we did really well on our first time, and I would say a bit more luck than talent, what were like your biggest takeaways, and given what you learned on this one, what kind of advice would you give someone else who's just getting started?
Yeah, I would say the biggest takeaway was during the renovations. Had we just done cabinets the first go around, that would have saved us a lot of money and headache down the road. But just getting our processes in place too, getting our contacts for different vendors, contractors, was a big learning process, but it set us up for the next projects, and we had a better understanding of what pricing looked like for everything, so that we were able to get a little bit more competitive on the next projects.
Yeah, I'll tell you, for me, my 2 biggest takeaways on this one is one, just always buy it for a super good price.
Yeah.
That if you can get an incredible price on the purchase, you have a lot of cushion for making mistakes, which obviously we made a ton of mistakes and we still made money. So I'm very thankful for that. The other thing, and this sort of transitions into our conversation about property management, is I think we could have done a lot better at tenant screening. It was our first rental property investment, and we were really on a shoestring budget, so we were like really anxious to get someone in there, and we pretty much ended up taking one of the very first applications we got, which ended up being a tenant who didn't work out. So I think that experience has really affected how we screen tenants moving forward. It's just that if you get any kind of a bad vibe at all, pass on the tenant. Like, you can always find another tenant. That there's tons of people looking for quality housing in San Diego. So we'll get back to the investing here in a sec, but I want to talk to you about property management, because that has really become your area of expertise recently. So why don't you tell people a bit about Palm Tree Properties, what we're doing, and what your specific skill set is within the organization.
Yeah, so Palm Tree Properties, we're specializing in residential, specializing in managing residential properties throughout San Diego County, anywhere from single family homes to small apartment buildings. My main focus is on leasing, so I'm in charge of the lease up and then the move-in process as well. And yeah.
And there's a lot of people who self-manage their properties, and I feel like the reason that they choose to sign up with us is that we have this really dialed in leasing process. So what is it about the way that we do leasing that you think is superior to the way most people are doing it?
Yeah, so the most important part of the leasing process is the tenant screening up front, because you're getting a lot of unqualified applicants. So it's really important to have those pre-screening questions on the initial phone call to help weed out a lot of bad candidates and save yourself the time from touring those spaces. But yeah, I would say just with the amount of leases we've done over the last few years, in the hundreds, that we've really become knowledgeable on how to evaluate different applicants and really get a feel for how people are as potential tenants.
Yeah, I think what it really comes down to is we're super responsive. I think a lot of people who are looking for a house, it's, by the time they're calling, they want to see the house. Like they're not trying to set something up for next week. And what you have really excelled on is, someone will call Max at 9 in the morning, and he'll be at the property at 11 a.m. ready to show them, provided that they pass the pre-screening questions. And that for our clients, we reduce the vacancy time whenever we're filling a unit, which vacancy is lost income. So it's because we are faster, our clients are making more money, and that they seem to really appreciate that. Talking about tenant screening, what are things that are a red flag that would disqualify a tenant for you?
Yeah, I would say the main red flags are credit score. But to that effect, credit scores can be made up of several different factors, especially when we're doing the Section 8 housing. But any criminal evictions, there's a lot of things that have gone to collection on their credit reports. Those are the big red flags.
I think one of the funniest things too is part of our process, we'll ask people, what are we going to see on your credit, just as like a general screening question. And so often people are like, oh yeah, my credit's good, you got nothing to worry about. Knowing we're going to pull your credit, like why not tell the truth? And then we pull it, and they're rocking like a 480 with like 6 active collections. So you mentioned Section 8. Talk a little bit about what we're doing with Section 8 and sort of the secret sauce to the strategy.
Yeah, so with Section 8, we're targeting newer construction townhomes in Eastlake area, Chula Vista zip codes, as well as La Mesa and Mission Valley. And we really like these markets because we're able to achieve premium rents on those 3 and 4 bedroom units. So on the 3 bedrooms, we're getting around $4,500 to $4,600 a month.
And what would otherwise be a market rate for one?
Around $3,500, $3,600.
Okay, so it's basically $1,000 in extra income by
Yeah.
Section 8.
Yeah, it's almost a 20% increase. So being able to achieve the premium rent is one of the main benefits, as well as having that level of security that either majority or all of the rent is paid for by the housing authority. Gives the owners peace of mind that they're going to be collecting, if not all of the rent, most of the rent to pay their bills. So at a time when evictions are becoming more apparent, it's great for owners to have that extra cushion.
You know, Max, I'll tell you something that I also appreciate about our Section 8 strategy is the longevity of the tenant. That it's a market rate tenant stays, maybe average tenancy is like 18 months. They'll be there like 1 to 2 years. Whereas, I mean, a Section 8 tenant, you can have someone stay for 5 to 10 years. I mean, it's very challenging for them to find landlords who are open to taking Section 8. So once you have them set up, it's almost automatic. And as many people who watch the show are in the rental property business, turnover is what kills you. So it's like anytime you can reduce the amount of move in, move out, and increase the length of the tenancy, you end up making more money. So tell people kind of the scope of what we have going on in terms of Section 8 and how big our business has become.
Yeah, so we started off with just our rental in La Mesa, and that scaled to helping some family and other clients purchase more townhomes as well. Right now, I would say we're around 14 properties between Eastlake and Mission Valley, and growing.
Yeah, no, we're like Max said, it started with our one, and we flipped that one, and we bought another one here in Mission Valley, and then we believe in the strategy so much that, I mean, both of us have put our family into these deals, and I was checking the accounting reports this morning, and at this point we are collecting over $60,000 a month in government assistance payments, which, I mean, we started with one rental for $4,000 a month, so to get to $60,000 a month this quickly is not something I would have expected.
And we have 2 under contract right now.
Got 2 under contract. We're always looking to buy more. Many of my previous commercial real estate brokerage clients have been divesting from their commercial properties and just teaming up with us to do these Section 8 projects, because, I mean, you got newer properties, less maintenance, higher income. It's really the whole thing is a rock solid strategy. And I think at this point, with the infrastructure that we have, we're probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, private management companies for Section 8 in the areas that we're working, which gives us a lot of competitive advantage compared to anyone else who's trying to get in the space. So switching gears here for a minute, I know that your dad has a background in contracting, and that you have been doing some flips on houses recently. So why don't you tell everyone about this project that you just completed, as well as what you're looking for in a deal?
Yeah, so just completed my first flip at the start of the year. We'd been buying and renovating properties prior to this, but this was my first true flip where I was in and out within a quick time frame. So this was my first time pursuing a hard money loan during the transaction. And when I first got into the deal, it was an off-market deal that a broker brought to me, but I didn't really have a plan for the financing. So I was working with a hard money lender who turned out to not have a ton of experience in the hard money game, and I kind of gotten led on for several weeks prior to ended up just cutting that relationship. But the financing was the hardest part of that transaction, in a really stressful time, because I had a deposit that was non-refundable.
Jumping on this, I have found that if you can ever get as close to the money as possible, it's better. That working through a broker or working through a lending company is like way inferior to working directly with the person who's lending you the money. I know in this transaction you ended up just going the private money route. So why don't you tell us a bit about your experience with first sort of trying and failing with the mortgage brokers and then ultimately getting the loan. I mean, how did all that play out?
Yeah, so when we first went into escrow, I was working with a hard money lender to get the loan. Wasn't a direct hard money lender, it was a loan broker working with a hard money lender to get the deal, but wasn't very clear on what that particular lender had for their term guidelines. And I wasn't gonna get a big enough loan that I had thought for both the purchase and for the rehab. So I started shopping to several other different hard money lenders, and one particular group was able to pull through at even much better terms than the prior quote I'd received. But last minute I was able to get a private loan, which was a huge saver because I was able to close right away, and I also saved some money on the upfront fees as well.
So you bought it for $550. What would you estimate you put into it as far as the renovation?
Yeah, so the property had good bones, but overall needed a full rehab, from cosmetic stuff all the way up to the roof needing to be replaced. So all in, I ended up putting in about $80,000 in improvements, and sold. So bought it for $550, had about 80 into it, and then sold it for $750.
Not bad. And so this whole process, start to finish, from opening escrow on the purchase to closing escrow on the resale, how long was that?
So I was in and out in 90 days. From close to close, it was just about 90 days. And that was with the first buyer on the exit too canceling. So I could have closed maybe 2 weeks earlier, but the first buyer I went with, they came in over asking, seemed like a solid buyer, ended up backing out. Luckily had a backup buyer that was ready to move forward at full price. So it worked out, but yeah, could have even gotten it done a little quicker than 3 months.
You gotta tell people about the cats.
Yeah, so when I first purchased the property, there's a lot of alley cats hanging out in the backyard. We first toured the home, opened up the backyard, and opened up the slider of the backyard, and there was maybe 6 or 7 cats just hanging out back there. The place had been sitting vacant for a little bit, so I guess they decided to set up their new home. But yeah, it took a little bit of time to get them a little rattled and moved out.
Yeah, and a new buyer does not want a house that comes with 6 or 7 cats.
Yeah.
So this one was a success. Obviously, you made a pretty impressive profit on that. Many people watching the show are agents here in San Diego who may be able to bring you future deals. What is like your general criteria when you're looking for one of these flip houses?
Yeah, so looking for lower priced homes, central parts of San Diego. So ideally, we're looking to purchase 3 to 4 bedroom homes, anywhere from $700,000 and less. We try to have a resale value of $1 million or less, so that there's a bigger pool of buyers. But yeah, properties that are unfinanceable or sellers that are needing a quick close.
And why target these like entry level homes? Why not go after mansions in La Jolla?
Yeah, just the way the market is right now. Interest rates are so high, but a lot of people still want to get into the game and become homeowners and have their own home. So being at that lower end of the price point, that barrier entry, there's just a lot more buyers in that price range, and a little bit less risk as well for me. as you know, private money loans aren't the cheapest, or hard money loans aren't the cheapest. So the longer you hold that property, the more expensive it is, and the scarier it can be as you get into that bigger price point.
Yeah, I remember talking to you when this first buyer flaked, and it's like, you were like, this thing's cost me $5,000 a month,
Yeah.
like I don't want to have to go back on the market. But yeah, it was a super inspiring story, and honestly, I was adverse to trying to flip houses, but then I saw how well it worked for you on this deal, so now we're pretty much full speed ahead. So any real estate agents that are watching, if you have a direct-to-seller deal that is not currently on the market, please reach out to us. I'll have my contact information listed below. You can represent us. We're not looking to participate all in the fee. We can close reliably, and I would say right now we're probably looking to pick up maybe 4 or 5 new deals by the end of the year. So we'd love to work with you. One deal can turn into many, and it can be a lucrative situation for all of us. So if you have something like this, please reach out to us. Wrapping up here, we've gone over your background, but both as an agent, an investor, so some tips for people on property management. Many people watching are looking to break into the business. Being that you've been doing this for quite some time now, what advice would you give to someone who's fresh out of college, sort of in your shoes when you got started? What kind of tips would you give them?
Yeah, I would suggest thinking long term. Where do they see themselves 5, 10, 20 years from now? Are they interested in owning real estate themselves? Because for me, when I first started investing in real estate, that was when I discovered that I liked the residential side of the business more than commercial. Just felt it was a safer investment. So thinking long term and having a vision of where you see yourself.
I think these are some good tips, and I will say in watching you over the years, one of the things that Max does super well is he is incredibly receptive to feedback. All the time we'll walk out of it. Even we were in a sales pitch last week, and we get out of the meeting, and the first thing Max asked me is, what could I have done better? And I think having this philosophy of trying to always improve yourself and not getting caught up on needing praise or validation all the time, but instead looking at sort of a philosophy of constant improvement leads to a lot of success in real estate. The other thing that I've noticed Max does very well is he sticks to his schedule. I mean, this guy makes big goals, he breaks them into small goals, and then he executes on them every day. And I think having that consistency is really how you achieve big things. I mean, nothing happens overnight, and the success that you've experienced is not the result of one day of hard work, but your consistent effort over time. So I think it's, I found it inspiring, and I think other people do as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be a sponge when you're first getting into the business. There's so much to learn about real estate. I mean, even to this day, you and I are both still always learning, always becoming more knowledgeable about different things within the business. Just focusing on what your specialty is, and staying focused on that, and just putting in the hard work, making your phone calls.
Awesome. Well, any final comments you want to leave before we sign off here?
If you have any clients that are in need of property management services, we're looking to grow our property management business. Single family homes, condos, townhomes, small apartment buildings, anywhere throughout San Diego County.
If people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to connect?
Yeah, you can connect with me on Instagram at Max Reynolds Realty, or you can give me a call at 619-672-9970.
Fantastic, Max. Well, thank you for coming on the show.
Exactly.
All right, you guys, that is a wrap for episode number 2 of the Easy Deals podcast. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Palm Tree Properties, San Diego's premier property management company. If you have real estate deals, if you are looking for property management, Or if you're interested in coming on the podcast, please reach out to me. I will list my contact information in the description. Thank you so much. Have a great day.